Welcome back to Living with CRPS, the search for relief and remission. I'm Elena Key, and today I'm thrilled to introduce Katie Howard, a physical therapist who has bravely battled CRPS for the past 4 years. Katie's journey to managing her own CRPS symptoms have been transformative thanks to her commitment to finding what works for her, which we'll dive into the specifics of, including infrared therapy, stretching, and innovative self-care strategies. Her story is one of resilience and determination, showing that with the right approach and not giving up, significant relief is possible. So, Katie, thank you for taking your time and for sharing your story. Before we dive into your specific CRPS story, I'd love to learn a little bit more about who you are as a person. We were chatting before that you live in Florida. What do you like to do and enjoy during your free time?
Well, thanks for having me. I like actually a wide array of things. I enjoy reading, baking, dancing, listening to music, gardening. Um, I like to learn more about different things that I encounter, and my kids love to ask me questions of odd, weird questions. I'm like, all right, let's look it up. So we do a lot of that kind of thing around here.
That's
Um,
great. Have you we recently started using ChatGPT to answer all of my daughter's questions of, I don't know the answer to that, but let's ask AI. I don't know if you've ever dove into that, but it's pretty
no,
pretty
I
cool.
really haven't. Um, I don't know. I'm kind of disillusioned with the whole AI thing.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, we're embracing it slowly. We have like the ChatGPT app on our phone and you can talk to it and say, like, how far is the sun? Just simple questions like that. It can
Mm-hmm.
answer on the spot with us without us having to like type it in our. It's basically like a glorified Google at this point for us.
Oh,
Um,
cool.
what genre of books do you like to read?
Um, that also is a wide array, but I think dystopian thrillers are my favorite.
What are some examples?
Well, like right now I'm listening, I do a lot of audiobooks because I don't get a lot of time to sit and read these days. So on my drive to work or whenever I'm folding laundry or doing things like that, I will listen to audiobooks a lot. So the one I've been doing lately has been the Cure Chronicles. So that's been interesting. I think the first one was good. It's kind of devolved a little bit from there, but the first one was good. Um, but I enjoyed like the Hunger Games and Divergent and all that, all those before they became movies.
Mm,
So I like a lot of different styles like that. Enjoy historical romances, that sort of thing.
very cool.
It's
Well, I'll need to look into. I hadn't heard of what you just mentioned, so I'll look into that. It's a series of books.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
series. And it's ironically some of the best dystopian ones are based around a hero or heroine that's around like 17 or 18. Ironically, I don't know why, but for some reason, all the ones that have adults as the hero heroine, they get too dark for me. Like
Oh,
too dark. I like
yeah.
a little dark, but not too dark.
Right.
And those just get to go too far. So I'm like, all right, I'll stay with this. So it's still
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. That's good. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Very
yeah,
good.
I as you said, I work as a physical therapist. I've been a PT for 12 years. I work, currently, I work in outpatient, specializing in multiple different fields. I am a pelvic health therapist. I am a vestibular therapist, a TMJ therapist, and an orthopedic therapist.
Oh,
So I
wow.
stay very, very busy. Um, but I have learned that the wide array of experiences I've had in my time as a PT has definitely helped me with my recovery. And then having the connections with other PTs has given me some insight into the process as well, which I think has been rather significant to my ability to manage my CRPS.
Yeah, what a unique set of circumstances that you were a physical therapist prior to having CRPS. Had you
Hmm.
treated any patients with CRPS prior to having it
Yes, I
yourself?
have, both before and since. So
Wow.
it's kind of a different, my view of it has changed dramatically
Mm.
compared to before I got it myself. Um, I always had sympathy and empathy for my patients that had it beforehand, but since having it myself, it's a whole different viewpoint. Um, they always say you can't really understand something until you've been through it yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Very much on point.
Mm-hmm. So, if there's anyone listening located in Florida, are you taking any new patients at this time? If there's
Yeah,
anyone with CRPS watching, what part of Florida are you located in? If you don't mind
I'm in the
sharing
Treasure
some of
Coast.
those. Okay.
Yeah, so I'm over down in the Port St. Lucie, Jensen Beach area.
Okay. And is it a private practice or
Hmm.
what is the? Okay.
Yeah, I work at Premier Physical Therapy.
Okay. Very good. I'll look it up and put a link to Premier Physical Therapy. And if anyone's in your area, that'd be great for you to be sort of their help and to, like you said, you've been in their shoes and you are in their shoes and
Hmm.
you know what they're going through.
It is
Um,
a rough road.
yes, yeah. So let's talk about the journey leading up to CRPS. What specific events led to you developing the condition?
Well, um, in November of 2024 or 2024, 2020, um, my husband, kids, and I had been over at my husband's mom's house helping to do some stuff around her house. It was her birthday, and we've been just kind of spending a little bit of time over there. And um, my mom had watched the kids and the dog while my husband and I were over at my mother-in-law's house. We went to go pick up the kids and the dog and had dinner with my mom at her house. They both live about 15 minutes away from our house, so it's like kind of like an L for the three of us. Um, so we'd, just had pizza, had some dinner, no big deal. And it was a little after 7 in the evening when we left my mom's house. And it was a light rain, and it was kind of getting a little on the darker side. And we're driving home, normal, easygoing evening, didn't think anything of it. And then all of a sudden, a teenager hit us head on. He was driving recklessly, weaving through
Mm,
traffic on the other side of the road, and it
mm,
was a median road. So
mm,
we're going this way, and he was coming that way. Um, so he ended up weaving through, lost control, jumped the median, and then landed hitting into the front corner of our car at full speed. We have actual video of it because my husband has dash cams in our car.
mm.
So there's video of the impact. So we were able to see what his speed he was going at. And he was going well over 60 miles an hour. And we were going about 45 miles an hour.
Wow.
And the speed limit for the zone was like a 45 miles zone. So the impact was enough that it caused us to spin.
Mm,
We span, got hit again,
mm.
and then span some more and got hit again. Before we finally stopped. The front of our car was crushed. They had to use the jaws of life to get my husband out from the driver's side. Um, when the accident happened, I had the pizza box in my lap
Mhm,
and was looking down, reading something out loud. And so my body didn't kind of prepare for having an impact.
the impact.
So I was flung around, just flung like a rag doll. Um, when they came and got us out of the car because I couldn't get myself out, my left leg was in screaming pain. I thought my leg was broken.
Mm,
Um, they took us to the emergency room, examined everything, um, said there's nothing broken,
mm,
but I couldn't put weight on my leg. I couldn't tolerate moving it and couldn't handle it. It was agony pain. It took almost 2 weeks after seeing doctor and everything like that, where the second orthopedist that I saw, um, who finally figured out what was going on with things. Um, to back it up one step, at this point, I was just under 1 year from having had hip surgery on my right hip
mm,
for a labral reconstruction.
mm,
So the surgeon who did my hip labral reconstruction is the one who figured out what was going on with my knee.
mm,
Because the doctor I saw for the knee first, he was like, "Yeah, you just have a bruise. You're fine." Um, The orthopedist who saw me for my hip checked my knee out. He's like, yeah, something else is going on here. They did some MRIs and everything, and he said, you have a closed degloving injury of your left knee.
What does that
If
mean?
you're not familiar with that, a degloving injury is when the skin is ripped away from the body part. So it was originally coined when somebody would lose the skin of their hand off of their hand. It
Mm,
would be ripped away like a glove. So that's where it was originally called a degloving injury. A closed degloving injury is when the skin is ripped away from the connections underneath, but doesn't ever rip open.
mm,
So my skin had been sheared away from all the connections underneath.
mm,
So it was just hanging there and
mm,
filling up with fluid. So my knee was several times normal size. It was
mm,
huge. Um, and so he's like, okay, at this point, the pain was so bad I couldn't tolerate even letting my foot rest on the ground. The
mhm,
sensation of anything touching it was
mm,
through the roof pain. So the doctor finally was like, okay, let's try to do something to help you out here. They got me on medications and such, and it's then started the process of trying to like manage what was going on with this knee. I couldn't tolerate even the sensation of sheets touching my leg. The sensation of my own hand just lightly brushing against it was unbelievable pain. It felt hot all the time. It was swollen. The whole leg from there down to my foot was swollen hugely. You couldn't even tell I had an ankle. You couldn't see I had a knee. It just looked like a
wow.
blob.
Wow.
Um, and just the pain was very, very, very high. So they put me on gabapentin after it was about a month before they finally said, okay, we're going to put you on some nerve pain meds here. They start you off, as always, they start you off on low dose and just kept climbing and climbing and climbing. And, after a couple of months into this process, I was at 900 milligrams 3 times a day and still having breakthrough pain. And they were like, okay, they didn't want to put me up higher,
Mhm,
but they were considering putting me up higher because nothing was helping. They had me on pain meds, they had me on the gabapentin, they had me on muscle relaxants, they had me. I was using my TENS unit. I was in PT, working with one of my coworker therapists who was trying to help me doing mirror image therapy, desensitization, all sorts of things to try to help calm this nerve down. Um, they found that I had back injury with a sciatic nerve impingement and listhesis in my spine, which a spondylolisthesis is a crack in a stabilizing portion of your spine, so that one level is shifting forward or backward on the other. The pizza box I'd had in my lap had caused my spine to shift backward,
mm,
compared to the lower part of it. So that was causing pain in my right leg,
mm,
while the degloving injury was causing problems on my left. The car accident had also re-damaged my hip that had just been
mm,
rebuilt,
mhm,
caused herniations in my thoracic spine, which is the upper back, and into my neck as well, which caused symptoms and numbness in my arms. So the accident caused a lot of damage. The therapy was effective for helping to calm down the back and the right leg and the neck and all of that, but the knee didn't get better. It just
mm,
stayed there. By a year out from the accident, I was able to get to where I could put weight on it and could walk. I was able to return to work at 4 months after the accident, but I couldn't do things the way I did before. I was still in major amounts of pain all the time, but I just kind of pushed through. I had to adjust my clothing so that way I kept a space away from my knee. Had to completely adjust everything I wore, everything I did. Um, was having to use ice on my knee, even though it hurt like crazy. It
mhm,
did numb it enough that I could get through work. I continued to try to work on some of the traditional CRPS treatment techniques, which I would say brought it down maybe 20% from what it was to start with, but it never really did much more than that. And then, like I said, about a year after the accident, my husband and I were trying to figure out ways to help with the situation. And it was actually my husband that stumbled upon the infrared therapy. And so we did some research on it and found, okay, this looks like a genuine possibility here. So we got an infrared therapy wrap. It's a couple $100 to invest in it.
Mm.
And I started using the infrared therapy. And it's an infrared, near infrared. It's a combination. I started doing it every day, 20 minutes, 3 times a day. And because the research we found was saying you need an hour a day minimum for it to be effective. So I started doing that. And initially, I was like, there's no improvement. It hurt more, actually, initially.
Mm.
Because the regeneration of the nerve, it oftentimes can cause more pain because the
Mm.
nerve is healing. So it was more sensitive, more heat, more pain, more burn initially. But then over time, as I continued with the treatment, it took about 4 months of doing the treatment before I started noticing the first signs that it was improving. I suddenly started noticing I wasn't getting breakthrough pain. Despite
Mm.
the gabapentin, despite the medications, I was always having breakthrough pain. It was always there. And one day I noticed, I took my meds and I actually don't have really any pain. Okay. So another couple months go by and I start noticing the swelling's going down. Okay.
Mm.
Start noticing the hypersensitivity was decreasing. I
Mm.
started being able to handle the sheets being on my leg. Started being able to wear pants, and not being in pain. Um, so started trying to reduce my gabapentin.
Mhm.
At about 9 months after starting the infrared therapy, I was able to significantly reduce my gabapentin. By a year out, I was down to about 300 milligrams a day from the 900 3 times a day.
Mm.
Somewhere around a year or so from starting the infrared. By 2 years, I was completely off of the gabapentin entirely.
Wow.
Um, so now I've been using it for 3 years now. I don't use it as much. It's one of those things. By the time I got to 2 years and was off the gabapentin, I reduced down to, a couple times a week for using it. Now I use it episodically. When I start to have a flare up of symptoms and like the last couple of weeks I've noticed, all right, it's a little burny, a little sensitive. All right, let's start using it again. And I'll start using it every day, back to that same pattern of several times a day, every day, until it starts to go away again. And I'll do it for a little extra and then I'll stop. And I'm generally do pretty good. I can't kneel. I can't handle pressure on it. I can handle wearing loose fitting pants, stretchy pants on it. I can handle that just fine. It doesn't bother me. I cannot handle compression, cannot
Mhm.
kneel on it. That never improved.
Mm.
There's still some swelling. The swelling is, I'd say, maybe 30% of what it was right after the accident, and it kind of stayed about there. Um, the redness is dramatically less. I'd say maybe 20% of what it was initially. The hypersensitivity to touch, it's down from the whole knee and shin down to a space of about a quarter. That is hypersensitive still. Um,
Do you have your own machine to do this at home, or do you go
yes,
somewhere? You do.
yes.
Which
I
one do
do have an infrared therapy wrap that we invested in. Um, the nice thing is that because infrared has gotten so much research over the last couple of years, infrared therapy technology has become much more affordable and
you?
much more common now.
Mhm.
Um, you know, a few years ago, an infrared wrap of decent quality would be, $300 to $500 at least. Now you can get them for between 100 and 200.
Wow.
So it's a major change in the cost to do it. Um, you know, am I saying it's going to work for everybody? No, I have had a couple of other patients that I've recommended them use it, and they have noticed a reduction in their symptoms. Um, the hardest part for people is because of the effect it has. It does heat. There's you feel hot. It
Mm-hmm.
does stimulate nerve regeneration,
Mm-hmm.
and there's quite a bit of research that supports it. But because of that, when you first start treatment, it hurts. There is pain associated with it when you first start it. So sticking with it to get to the effect was hard. If I
Mm-hmm.
had not had my husband kind of basically saying, no, it's time for your treatment, and kind of making me make sure I stayed on track with it, I probably would have fallen off of it because
How
it had hurt.
long?
You know,
Yeah.
um, the other key piece to it is that the research says after you do the infrared therapy treatment, about an hour later, you put ice to bring the heat back down, the inflammation back down. Again, pain.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like you have to have pain to get pain relief. It's kind of weird, right? Um, so just if someone chooses to do the infrared therapy, you really have to be prepared that in the early stages, you're not going to see results for a while, a long while. It's gonna hurt initially, but the effects over time, I cannot argue with it. It has been a life changer for me. Humongous life changer. When everything else was barely stemming the tides at all, this has been a game changer.
How long is each session with your rep?
20 minutes.
And has it always
And
been 20 minutes since the beginning?
yeah, 20 minutes 3 times a day is how long a treatment is. And it's something that it's a love-hate relationship.
Mhm. How did you, I think you mentioned your husband stumbled upon infrared therapy. How did he find it, and how did he make the connection to maybe this would help your CRPS?
My husband is an engineer, and he's very, very good with doing research. Um, he was trying to find, I think it was right around the time where I was having a particularly rough spell where I was just so miserable, I was barely able to function. Um, and despite and keep in mind, throughout this whole time after the accident, I was going to the gym and exercising. I was doing therapy. I was doing all of the stuff, all the things, stretching. I was doing the medications. I was doing the TENS units. I was doing all of everything I could find. I was constantly looking for what else can I do to try to help this. And so he was as well, like always on top of, all right, anytime that he saw me being in so much pain, he was like, all right, what can we do? What else can we do? What other treatment approaches are there? We started looking at homeopathic approaches, natural approaches, alternative treatments. And that's when he came across some of the research. So he started reading some of the research. And being an engineer, he's able to read and understand the research
Mhm.
generally pretty well. And so he showed me some things like, there's some studies that are finding when there's nerve damage, that you can be able to use the infrared and near infrared wavelengths to encourage the nerves to heal and regenerate. And so we just like, you know what? All right, let's try it. So we decided to go forward with it, and I'm really glad we did.
That's great. Do you remember where he found the resources? Was it a website? Was it a book?
He was looking at like things like PubMed and the National Health Institute and stuff like that.
Okay.
There's a couple
Um,
of them that I tried to pull up a few um, to try to show some of the earlier research that we had pulled up was showing that um, the infrared therapy promoted the regeneration of the sciatic nerve. The first one we looked at was actually a rat model where they had intentionally cut the sciatic nerve in a rat and then
mm,
used the infrared therapy on it, and it showed the nerve actually reconnected and healed.
wow.
Um, there's a variety of different stages. There was a newer one in the last couple of years that was looking at the efficacy of low laser therapy, which
Hmm.
is uses infrared wavelengths. Um, and they found that anything between 600 and 900 nanometer wavelength is effective, with the higher wavelengths being more effective. Um, a lot of that you have to be careful about. Some of the lower cost infrared therapies will be under 600 nanometers, and because they're getting close to that, you want to try to aim closer to the 900 nanometers where possible. Um, but they looked at a lot of research on that. You can find it pretty easily. Like Springer Link has several articles, um, and then there's one on, where's the place? There's that one in a journal called Reviews in Neuroscience. Um, there's a couple in um, the, where is it? Um, Wiley Wiley Online Library has a lot of medical reviews, a lot of medical um, journals
Hmm.
that have a different research there. So you can be able to quite easily with looking up in even Google Scholar will even pull up some of them, that if you put in infrared therapy and nerve regeneration, you can be able to find the pieces that you need. So it's becoming easier to find.
That's good. Yeah, there's red light therapies all around my house and pre CRPS. I'm like, what's the point of that? But yeah, now that I have it.
It's the combination. It's not just the light. It's you have to have the red wavelength, which is the light part.
Hmm.
That component stimulates the nerve activity. Then you need to have the near infrared, which helps to speed up nerve responses and stimulate the mitochondria, which is a component inside your cell that produces energy. And then you need to have the heat. You've got to have the heat, which is the one of the things that the wraps, the light and the heat are right onto your skin. Like there's no separation. They're right there on it. And that combination, it's that closeness that heats and stimulates the nerve activity together. That's what does it. If you have anything that's further away, so there's a space, you get basically nothing from that. You need to have enough contact. There can't be more than a half an inch of space between the diode that's emitting the light and the skin.
What is the brand of your wrap?
DGYAO it's actually, it is a Chinese company, but that's the brand that we ended up getting. At the time, there were very few options that were not astronomically expensive. This one was around 300, and it was a refurbished unit for
Mm,
that. Now the same company now has units that are just under 200
brand new,
for
not
brand new.
refurbished.
hmm
Yeah.
You can get them on Amazon actually now.
Hmm. Have you done anything before, after infrared therapy to try to further help your CRPS?
Since doing the infrared, um, because I had so much relief with it, I really haven't needed to do much else with it. I mean, I did see a couple of pain management doctors and such, and the the last pain management doctor I saw, and this one I saw while I was in the midst of starting the infrared therapy. So I had just started it, had not started getting relief yet. His response to me was, "You're too complicated. You need to go to a teaching hospital where they can be able to treat you effectively," because of all the things going on. Because I had the back, I had the thoracic, I had the neck, I had the knee, I had all of that going on. He's like, "You're just too complicated. I can't help you."
That's so frustrating.
My neurologist has been more help than my pain management was. Um, he has been the one who's kind of monitored and adjusted my medications to help me throughout that process, and he's still keeps tabs on me even now.
So today, are you taking any sort of medications, even a low dosage of
Mm,
gabapentin?
no, I have it if I need it, but the second I start feeling a little bit of symptoms, it's like, all right, it's feeling a little irritated today. I go straight over to my light wrap and use it right away.
Mm.
So it's become like it's because I got it to where it's so mild now. Like, is it ever not there at all? No. I'd always have a little sensation. There's always that little bit of like an annoyance underneath the surface. But it's
Mhm.
so low that I'm like, I don't want any of the side effects of the medications. I don't want to, it's not worth it. So, and the light wrap calms it down when it does start to kind of say, ah, I'm coming up. So, it does the job pretty well. Um, it's still easy to piss it off if I'm not paying attention. I slammed my knee into the a table at work the other day, and I think that's what has started the flare up I am having right
Mm.
now. So I've been having to use my light rep quite a bit the last 2 weeks, but it's starting to calm back down again. So it's like once you
Well,
get it
that's good.
into a cycle, it
Yeah,
calms down much faster.
yeah. That's good that you have a strategy of when it starts to flare. You know what to do and to help calm it down.
Yep.
What was I gonna say? Oh, so earlier you mentioned you can't kneel, but are you now able to put weight on your foot?
On my foot, yes, I can walk on my foot. Um, I mean, my foot will swell, but it doesn't hurt to walk on it. I can't kneel on my knee because the main injury was up there. So the separation, the way the degloving injury was, the separation of the tissue never reattached because of the way it was injured.
Mm.
So there's this fluid ball in there that unless I'm willing to do surgery for, which no, um, then I'm just kind of stuck with this separation there. So if I try to kneel on it, it compresses and causes pain. So yeah.
And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, whenever we spoke on Facebook, I think you mentioned you do stretches to help. Are you
Hmm.
still doing that today?
Oh yes. I do have a stretching routine that I do every day to try to keep things moving. Strengthening and stretching is really, really critical with CRPS because what tends to happen is because you're in pain, you stop moving. You stop moving, you lose the ability to move. So when you try to move, it becomes painful, which then sets off more inflammation, more pain cycle. So by keeping moving, not really staying still for prolonged periods, even when you hurt, it helps to keep the body loose and mobile. Keeping strengthening has been really, really important for me because I've found throughout this whole time, if I stopped doing things where I was not moving enough, not staying strong, not doing strength training, I started noticing more symptoms come up,
Mm.
more flare-ups would occur. So by staying with, okay, I need to make sure I get enough squats and enough lunges, enough um, lifting, enough, and I do mostly body weight type strengthening. Um, if I do enough of that, I do much, much better. It was very hard in the early stages because in that first 2 years when I was still in so much pain, um, I struggled to motivate myself to go to the
Mhm.
gym, to do workouts, to do anything like that. And even though I would see it's like, oh look, I can finally do a full squat. That took me, a long time to get to where I could actually even do a full squat again.
Mhm.
Um, so that's been a significant factor. Um, I have definitely noticed it's very easy, both with myself and with other CRPS people that I've worked with. It's very, very easy to allow the pain to control how much you do.
Mhm.
Um, a factor for me is I also have a history of fibromyalgia, which I've had since I was 18.
Mm.
So my pain responses are very different. It's very easy for my nervous system to be very sensitized to pain.
Mm.
So I already knew for me before this that I had to move and had to stretch and had to stay strong because that's how I managed my fibromyalgia before. because I was in the emergency room all the time, was on medications for that, and by doing the right kind of activities and such, I was able to get off of those and manage that effectively. So it's allowed me to stay in a cycle of that process. But it's hard. It's so hard, and it's a daily battle because there are days it's like I really don't feel like it. This hurts. Don't want to. But then I remind myself it'll hurt more if I don't.
Mm.
So that's one of the things I generally find is people just it hurts, so don't want to do it. You avoid it. It's the worst thing you can do.
What about your stretches? What does that look like? You mentioned you have a morning stretch routine.
Yeah. So I kind of start from bottom down and work up.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'll wake up in the morning and before I even get out of bed, I have certain things I do. So I will do the ankle alphabet or ankle circles
Mm-hmm.
to get things loosened there. I will do an active calf stretch where I try to pull my toes up as high as I can and just kind of flex my ankles as much as possible while straightening my leg. I will try to act like my leg is on the rack, stretching it and reaching it further away from my body as much as I can.
Mm-hmm.
I'll do that on both sides there. Then I will bend my knees and go side to side, letting everything loosen up from there. I'll turn on my side, turn my shoulders back and forth, trying to loosen up the mid back. Then I'll reach my arms overhead and I will do the same thing of reaching like I'm on the rack there. And I do circles up from there. So that's just to kind of loosen up in the morning and get things going before I get out of bed. That takes me maybe like 2 minutes. During the day, I have found for me, because my CRPS is in my knee, the key stretches for me are keeping my quads loose, keeping my hamstrings loose, keeping my loose, and my hip loose. If I don't stretch those on a daily basis, the
Mm-hmm.
tension in them builds up and I start getting more pain.
Mm-hmm.
So, when that happens, sometimes I will have my husband use our massage gun on my good leg to help soften up, and then on the areas not on my knee, but around it to help loosen it back up whenever I've kind of let it go too far. And that does help. So I guess technically I do have that as another approach that I've used as well. But doing those stretches is really hard to do because it's so easy to overstretch. So when you stretch, you want to go to the point where you feel a mild to moderate sensation of pull, but
Mm-hmm.
not where you feel a strong, almost painful pull. And a lot of people will tend to go to the painful point, and
Mm-hmm.
that's when the body says, "Nope, I'm gonna fight this." When you go, it's like, okay, I can feel tension, I can feel the pull. It's a comfortable pull. Then the muscles will let you in. It just takes more time.
What are your future goals in terms of both health and just personal goals that you want to achieve?
Hmm. Well, um, I would like to be able to get to where I can run and jump more comfortably. When I try now, I can do it, but it definitely does kind of make my knee cranky. Um, so I'd like to get to where I can do that. Um, you know, I enjoy what I do. I enjoy my job. I only work part-time, so that way I can be able to homeschool my kids as well. So, it keeps me very busy that way, but I'd like to be able to see the same enjoyment with what I do for work and kind of a better balance with, taking care of my kids as well.
Yeah. Remind me, how old are your kids?
My oldest is going to be 11 in August, and my youngest is 9.
That's great.
They
Are
keep
they
me on my
have they
toes.
always been homeschooled? Do they enjoy homeschooling?
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, we've homeschooled from the beginning, and we have a great support network, a lot of co-ops in the area. So, so yeah, we it's been good, and it's hard. It's a challenge, but it's been I think beneficial because when all of this has been happening with my leg and everything, it's allowed me the flexibility to address what's needed. So it's like, okay, so sometimes I needed to take a day where it was a little lighter and easier. So I sat in my recliner and we did our schoolwork from there. Other times it's like, all right, I'm feeling good today, so let's go to the park and we'll learn there. So it's allowed us to have more flexibility.
I love that. I love that flexibility part of your lifestyle. Well, Katie, I won't keep you any longer. I really appreciate you sharing not only your time, but your journey and the knowledge that you shared today. And I'm sure lots of people will find helpful as they are trying to find their own relief. As you mentioned, as Katie mentioned, there's not like a one size fit all. So each person I've talked to, they've found something that's different that helps them. So it's all up to what works best for you and what helps you find relief. I'll look up Katie's physical therapy office and put it in the description in case you want to meet and work with Katie for physical therapy if you're in her area. Katie, thank you again. I really appreciate your time. It was so nice chatting with you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Take care. Have a good rest of your day.
You too.